in 1875, and people have lived on the property since 1826. There was a house over on the corner with the original tower. And in 1857, they added the third order Fresnel lens, which you can see at the top if you look through the glass. You can see the lens. That lens was put in 1857. They paid $10,000 for the lens in 1857. It's now worth $1.5 million. So you are not allowed up in that area. Just so you know, okay? You are not allowed up there. That's actually Coast Guard. The lens, the light, because we're still a working lighthouse, so it will be blinking on and off all night long. That is, the light itself is Coast Guard property. Everything else belongs to us. Okay?
Are we going to be able to be on the outside
I will take you up there so that you can see.
Sure.
That face in the bottom window just threw me for a second.
That is meant to throw you, yes. In the basement.
Oh man, yeah, that'll take you by surprise.
Most of the time he's over here in one of these windows, but I just move him around just for effect. Just for effect, I move him around down there. When I first started working
So actually,
here,
if we see him over here tonight, well, we know there's a problem.
yes, because I'm not planning on moving him for a while. But when I first started working on the property as one of the board members and stuff, I had never been in the basement before. And the first time I opened the door, there were 15 mannequins sitting at the bottom of the stairs staring at you. That threw me for a loop. I opened the door, I'm like, oh my God. It's like, you know, did not quite like the mannequins down there. He's the only one that's left. And it's only his head. Yes, ahead of him. Well, and most of the mannequins, because they were sitting on the floor down there and it's wet, all their legs were rotted off and stuff, you know, so they were less like, they're kind of creepy looking. Okay, as I said, this house was built in 1875. They moved the tower in 1875 over to here from the corner of the property. They took it down, moved it over here, rebuilt it. Then they put this Victorian house up, and they didn't like the way the original tower looked because it was round with this Victorian house, so they put a square tower around the outside of the round tower. Okay? So there are actually two towers there. And when you're standing on the observation deck, you're standing on the square tower. It used to be cantilevered out before they, from 1826 until 1875. It was a cantilevered deck out there. So there was nothing underneath you. Now you at least have cement block. Okay, the tower is about 61 feet tall. The observation deck is 45 feet off the ground. It's 65 feet off the water because there's a 20-foot drop off the cliff right there. Now this property went out about another 50 or 60 feet into the water at one time, and there used to be a road that went all the way around the other side of that fence, all the way down the property. There was an assistant lighthouse keeper on the property also, because where that kid drowned is over here, where you see this cylinder. You have to kind of come past this building and look between the trees. But there's a cylinder lighthouse right over here next to the electric power plant. That's where the kid drowned, right there. Okay. There's always been a lighthouse there. That's what they call the pier light, because that's where the entrance to the harbor is. So the ships have to go there. So there's always been a lighthouse there also. So we had an assistant on the property, and between the assistant and the lighthouse keeper, they used to have to walk down the beach and go all the way out there to light the second light.
Oh, wow.
Okay. That power plant was not put in until 1950, and that was all swampland before that time. So there was a long wooden deck and then a cement wall that went out to that light.
It's like the walk of shame, huh?
Kind of. Well, I don't know. On a really nice night like tonight,
yeah,
it was really, not bad. Now, in the middle of a storm, yes, that is not the best place, because when the waves hit over there, they go right up that walkway and up about, they can go almost as high as the tower.
Oh, wow.
Okay. There's a tower over here. This tower was there. That one's new. That was there since 1992. That one's been there. Before that, it was this one here. This was here from 1939 until 1992. That was over there. So in 1992, they brought that one over here. The one that you see next to the gate when you pulled in, that's called a milk bottle buoy. That actually stood at the entrance to the Buffalo Harbor until 1985. There were two of them on a break wall, one on each end, and the ships went around the two to go in and out of the harbor. So it has windows and a door because the Coast Guard kept equipment in that. Okay? Now, nobody's lived in this house since 1960. It's been a museum since '84. In 1960, the Coast Guard automated the light. It was oil until 1939. They used whale oil and then they went to kerosene. And the one was the oil light went around in a circle like this, and the lighthouse keeper had to go up every 4 hours all night long and wind a lens clock mechanism like a grandfather clock to make the light go around in a circle. Plus he had to regulate the airflow so that the light would burn. If it had too much air, it would burn too quickly and then burn all the oil out, so you'd have to go up there and fill it and start it all over again. If it burned too slowly, it produced all the black smoke, so then you'd have to go up and wash the windows and the lens so the light could be seen. Okay?
A lot of work.
Plus it was a working farm until the 1930s. They grew most of their own vegetables and stuff like that, and they had horses and cows and chickens and pigs. There was a barn here. The assistant lighthouse keeper's house was right about where those rescue boats are right there. Okay, that they took down in the 1960s. There was a barn between the two houses right here that burnt down in 1926 during a thunderstorm. The lighthouse keeper at the time was Mr. Arnold, and he went out to calm down the horses and the cows, and they kicked over a kerosene lantern and burnt the barn down. So that building was built as a replacement, and they just moved it away from the water.
Seems like a safer place.
Well, yeah. Okay, we're going into the kitchen now. And under the kitchen there is a cistern. All the water off the roof used to run down into it. So they had a hand pump in the kitchen in 1875, so they had indoor plumbing. Now there are a lot of antiques in here, so we do ask that you be very careful with like your equipment and stuff where you happen to put it. And most of the chairs are not chairs that you should sit on. These chairs here, you can, if you feel like sitting in chairs. Anything with that pattern on it, you can sit, because those are chairs that are pretty okay. But when you get into the living room, the dining room, you notice a lot of the chairs are very antique and they're very
Delicate.
delicate. Yes, I guess that's a good word. Okay, so we have our ice box, we have our coil refrigerator. We have our wooden telephone, we have our washing machine, we have our stove, of course. This was wood converted to gas in the 1920s. Okay. A warming oven. There was a hot water tank in here. That's how they got most of their hot water.
That's amazing.
Cabinets are original. The blue dishes were used by one of the families that lived here. We have Coast Guard and Navy dishes there because in 1939 the Lighthouse Service was turned over to the Coast Guard, so in 1939 you became a Coast Guard employee.
It's like random. All of a sudden you're like, by the way, you're now employed by the government.
Well, because of World War II pending,
Yep,
right.
they put all lighthouses under the protection of the Coast Guard, so you became a Coast Guard employee at that time instead of just a government employee, because you were a government employee before that.
Plus, it was very important to have a
Yes,
a lighthouse
yes.
at that time.
Well, and the United States always thought that Germany was going to invade the United States through Canada. Now, during the Civil War, Northern soldiers were stationed on this property, right? Because they thought the Confederates were crossing the lake and getting supplies and stuff, right? We have a newspaper article of one of the Civil War soldiers that was stationed on the property, and he talks about one night he and his buddy were patrolling, and they thought they saw Confederate soldiers, so they fired the cannon. All they did was rattle the town and blow the windows out of it. Which was one of the reasons why in 1875 they had to move the tower. Okay? So we know things like that did happen. We have some recorded history of them, but it's kind of an interesting story just to chat about. Okay, you go into the dining room. This is where I get a lot of sense that people are here. My very first experience, when I first started here, I had to come in the middle of winter. The first time I had to come in the house in the middle of winter, the people who had the museum were in Florida. And these American Legion commanders called and said they were coming to town for a conference, and could they come into the museum? So Dick, who was the head of the lighthouse, called me and said, "Can you open up for them?" So I came in, and I'd never been in a house by myself before. and never felt anything. I would come in with tours and do stuff, and have people. And so I came in, I turned the lights on, I turned the heat on, because it was pretty cold in here, and I'm standing in this window, looking out the window at the driveway, waiting for the people to show up. And all of a sudden I feel this. And the hair on my arms is going up like this, and on the back of my head I'm like, oh crap. I have no clue what's going on. And we talk about this ghost named Charlie. So I said, look, Charlie, I said, American Legion commanders are coming. They're going to be here about an hour and a half, and then I'll leave, and I won't be back until spring. He walked away. My hair went back down. There was no pressure. He just left. But it was like, he was asking, I guess he was asking me, what the hell are you doing in the house and why are you here, So I figured I better at least tell him. That scared the living daylights out of me. Because I'm wearing my winter coat, I got a hat on, I got gloves on, and the hair underneath my coat's going like this. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't like this at all. I'm like, please get here quickly because I want to go home. But once they came, everything was fine.
So, what were some of the first stories you've heard about it being haunted?
Well, Charlie, according to what I heard when I started here from Dick, Charlie was a friend of one of the lighthouse keepers in the late 1800s or early 1900s. And there were some children out here that were swimming and they got caught in like a rip tide. So the lighthouse keeper and Charlie went out to rescue them. Charlie and 2 of the children drowned. The lighthouse keeper and 2 of the children survived. So since that time, they've always felt Charlie and the 2 kids were here. And I do feel like a tall presence. Like that day, I felt a really tall presence. Lots of times now, I feel small presence. And they stand and they hold on to my pant legs like this. Like my daughter used to do, when you were, how kids do that to their parents, where they hide behind them? Well, they stand here like this. And sometimes they play with my hair. Like this, I'll feel them going like this. And it's like, yes, I know you're here, it's okay. But I feel them a lot here, in this room, in that room, by the tower, most of the time. Okay, of course, we also have this doll right here. She's almost 100 years old. Wow. She is a tad creepy when you look at her.
Just a little.
I have a friend who likes to come in when people like you are here. He loves. He doesn't. He used to be afraid to come even on the property. He loves to come here now. The doll scares the living crap out of him. He was in here one day with this other guy. We were doing a ghost tour, and most everybody else was over there. We were upstairs. Nobody was in here. It was him and this other guy were here, and we were upstairs talking about some stuff up on the 2nd floor. All of a sudden, we hear this screaming. The 2 of them, we come running down the stairs, the 2 of them had been looking at the doll, standing here like this, looking at her. All of a sudden, she slid down in the seat, like this. Scared the living daylights out of him. My friend headed that way towards the door to get out. The other guy didn't know where he was. He headed towards George, and they slammed into each other. Scared the living daylights out of him. So the doll's kind of
iffy.
Well, I think the kids play with her. Well, one day I came in, and the whole high chair was sitting right there.
Really?
Yes. And we don't move her around, and she shouldn't be in front of the windows anyway because of the sun coming in,
Yeah.
So we tend to leave her over here where she's a little more protected. The blue ball, I do find this blue ball sometimes in this cup. The other day we found it upstairs on the 2nd floor during one of our tours in the Navy room. We had a group in here one time, and we were all standing there at the bottom of the stairs. Nobody was in this room, and all of a sudden the ball came out and went like that, and nobody was in the room. And it actually went right through the door to our feet.
Oh, really?
Yes, and nobody was here. So, but the ball actually belonged to another spiritualist guy who was here from Texas. And he was
A bit of a
kind of
personality.
He was kind of looking around and checking things out, and he went into the tower, and there's a dumbwaiter in the bottom of the tower. And he decided he wanted to go inside and investigate the dumbwaiter, which nobody had been in years. So he opened the door, and it's full of junk. So he starts, dirt and stuff, so he starts pulling all this dirt and stuff out. And he's got this ball in his pocket. It belongs to him. And he brings it with him so ghosts can play with it. and it was bothering him in his pocket, and he was the only one in the tower. Of course, he thought his girlfriend was standing right next to him. So he takes the ball out of the pocket and he says, "Here, take this," and he doesn't look. Well, the ball goes away from his hand. So once he gets done, and we were talking to him, he says, "Hey, where's my ball?" And I'm like, none of us have it, because we were all like in the living room or something like that. We searched all over the house. We could not find the ball. The next morning I came in, I scraped all the stuff up off the floor that he had like thrown out looking for the ball. The ball was not there. So for 3 days we didn't see the ball. I came in the morning to unlock, and the ball was sitting at the bottom next to the dumbwaiter. So I called him and I said, "I got your ball," because he's back to Texas. He says, "Well, just put it by the doll." So ever since then, we just leave it here. And of course, this cup has sides, so there's no way the ball can come out of it.
Right.
You know, it can't just fall onto the floor
Yeah.
unless somebody actually moves it. So I watch it. You know, I usually keep it in here, but if I find it in the cup, I leave it in the cup, and sometimes
Vice
it'll move.
versa.
I haven't seen it move in a while. Well, since last week when it was upstairs in the Navy room. But it's kind of an interesting little thing that happens.
Yeah. And something that's easy to track too. It's always
It
in one
is.
spot. and
It is. Because it's always here. And I'm the first one in every day, just about, except for the one day I take off and stay home. But I'm usually the last one out at night, and I'm the first one in the morning normally. So if something goes on in the middle of the night, I'm usually the one who finds it. So a couple of times I found like the silverware will be moved. I haven't seen that since this season opened, but a couple of times, like last year, the year before, I'd come in the morning and like one of the cups would be sitting like this.
Just to mess with you.
Yeah, or the spoon would be turned, or the fork or something, you
Right.
know, where you kind of wonder how they would get that way when nobody's in the house.
So when they move things, they generally move it in such a way that it's clear that it's not just
Yeah.
somebody bumping into it. It's
Yes.
actual movement.
Yeah. I mean, you know, the cups can't go upside down by themselves.
And how often do you guys do tours in here?
Every day.
Every day. Okay.
We're open from May 1st until the end of October.
Okay.
So we do tours on a daily basis if people come in and so choose to do a tour.
Right.
Because they have to pay, you know, and some people
Right.
think that they should just be able to walk in the house for nothing. And it's like, yeah, how do you expect us to pay our bills if you don't pay us some money to come in the house? Which is why we have to charge people,
Oh, yeah.
you know, at night to
We
keep it
know how
open.
that is.
Yeah.
We know how to expect that.
Okay. These are more paintings by the same guy who did the painting of our house. All right, this is Point Avenue, which is across from Buffalo on Lake Erie, where the Welland Canal comes into Lake Erie. That's Mohawk Island. Mohawk Island is a little island out in Lake Erie on the Canadian shore that is a bird sanctuary now. This is Peggy's Cove in Nova Scotia. Okay. Now over here, this is our
This is the original one.
and the lighthouse.
Oh, that's the original one.
Over here, this is where the lighthouse keeper slot. So we do get a lot of activity in here. Now I will tell you, if you have one of those EVP things or whatever they are, do you have one? Are you going to
Yeah.
use those?
We have plenty of stuff.
Okay, there is a, right here in the basement, there is like a gas line or something that goes straight through here, and the electric line hits it. So if you put your EVP thing on the floor here,
It'll go nuts.
it goes nuts.
Oh, okay.
All the way, like from here all the way to the doorway. It's just a line that does that. So if you put it too low to the floor, it will act
Pick
up.
It's grounded.
It's grounded. So just so you know, if you
That's
do
great.
that,
That saves a lot of time.
don't worry about that one.
Yeah.
That's this
That's
pipe
normal.
that's down in the basement.
Okay.
It's one of the
Okay.
biggest things we've always found with old historic sites and stuff, or old houses. The electricians took a shortcut. They
Yes.
grounded everything to the plumbing
Yes.
or any nearest
Yes.
pipes.
Yes. So this one, it's just like from here, because the furnace is like right here under us, right here, you know, and it kind of like goes right over the top of the furnace and kind of like touches the ductwork and stuff like that, and there's like 15 wires that go underneath it, and they like touch it, so it really drags that out.
Yeah.
Okay, so like this, these are lighthouse keepers that have lived on the property, right there on the piano. And I've had kids on the tour who point to this guy and say, "Mommy, that man's standing down the hallway.
Huh.
He was here during the Civil War." That's Henry Severance. Okay. This is Peter Dempsey. He was here from 1885 until 1902. He raised 5 children in this house. This is Mr. Arnold. He was here from 1909 until 1950. He raised 6 children in this house. Okay? This clock belongs to Mr. Dempsey, and so do those 2 chairs right there. Okay, so those are from the 1850s. This painting belonged to the Arnold family. Okay? They had that in the house when they lived here, and their daughter just passed away last year, and her son sent us the painting back and said, "Please put it back in the house." Okay, and it hung in the living room. So that belonged to them. Of course, the fireplace is original. The painting is Barcelona. That's 12 miles from here. That's the only gaslit lighthouse in the world. That's been there since 1828. That lighthouse right there.
Wow.
Of course, this is his bedroom. We have the uniform that he wore. The typewriter, the desk, and the chair, that belonged to the lighthouse keepers. That's what they did all of their paperwork on. Of course, it wasn't in that room at the time. We just have it in there for our display. Some of the items that their wives, Mr. Arnold's wife used are right there. Okay. We have our Victrola. And sometimes the Victrola plays and sometimes it does not. Okay. You do have to wind it up. We'll see. Sometimes you can get it to work. But once you wind it up, you have to pull this little handle. See this little handle here? And it snaps into position to make it go. Sometimes when I let it go, it shuts itself off. And it's supposed to, see?
Yeah.
It's supposed to lock into position. Sometimes it does. Now it did.
There you go.
All right. And then sometimes when you put the needle on, it shuts itself off. See, like that.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes you have to ask them politely to let you play the Victrola, and sometimes they will let you. But when kids are here, it usually will play fine. If it's only adults, it will not.
Really?
Yeah. So.
We'll have to test that later.
I always think those things are so cool.
It is, and it really plays well when it plays. But
Sounds
obviously,
like one of the belts rooms.
he doesn't. He's not letting you today. And one of them is here. I can feel him. He is here. I don't know. It's probably Charlie or one of the adults that are in the house because I can feel him standing here. It's not one of the kids right now. I don't know if you can feel him, but I can.
I can, yeah.
Okay. He's here. He's been
she's the one
following
to
me
talk to.
around since we were in the dining room. He's been following me, and he's like right here. Okay. Wedding dress is made out of 2 World War II silk parachutes.
Didn't even see that there.
Huh.
That's pretty cool.
Okay.
I didn't even notice it.
And it was worn by 4 local sisters between 1945 and 1953. And these are the sisters here. And this guy right here, Robert Farnham, he was coming home on a 30-day leave in 1945 to marry his girlfriend.
You think that's the same Farnham?
I don't
Is it?
think
I was
so.
just gonna say.
I don't think so. I think it's
We know we have friends that own the Farnham Mansion in Oneida.
But I don't think
Okay,
it's the same.
I don't think it's the
Farnham.
same.
Okay.
Farnham is a big family around here.
Okay.
In fact, there's a town up the road called Farnham.
Oh, okay.
That's-
Okay.
Okay.
Just
but-
funny that it is.
Yeah.
You're like,
He was coming home on a 30-day leave to marry her. He brought home 2 used silk parachutes. He gave them to her. She had 2 weeks to have them made into a wedding dress. So she took them to a local seamstress who put the 2 parachutes together. Now the decorations on the dress are apple blossoms that were waxed and sewn on in 1945.
Wow.
Okay. In 1947, in February, her sister Geraldine wore it when she married Frederick Fuller. In September of that same year, her sister Bee wore it when she married Art Lamb.
jeez.
Okay.
Got a lot of use.
Yes, it did. And then in 1953, their youngest sister Mary wore it when she married James Harrington. Okay. Now, this guy was on our board. That's why we have the wedding dress. Because it was up in their attic. And they decided just to display it at the Lighthouse, you know, because it kind of is a unique story.
It is.
Now, all 4 husbands have passed away in just the last few years. They were all in their 80s, early 90s. 4 sisters are still alive, and that's what they look like now. Well, it's kind of a neat story.
Yes.
It is.
And silk parachutes were made in Dunkirk at the silk factory during World War II. So they could have been originated here and then been brought back. We also made hand grenades and bayonets. So,
Neat.
kind of interesting things.
Very.
Okay?
I
All right.
wonder if that's where my great grandfather worked. My family's from
My hand's
Buffalo,
breaking.
and my great grandfather worked in a munitions plant during World War II making bayonets.
Okay. Well, there was one in town here. There was probably more than one up in the Buffalo area. We had a radiator factory. That's where they made the hand grenades. And then we had a steel plant here, and that's where they made the bayonets.
Improv. That's what
Well,
they
you
did.
know, you had to make something
Yeah.
for the war effort. Otherwise, you couldn't get material for anything else. So by making parachutes, they could also make shirts and gloves and things like that and keep people employed. And then, you know, the radiator factory made Jeep radiators too, besides hand grenades. We do have a couple of local hand grenades in the store in the case, because the guy who made them put them in his closet. And when he died, his grandson brought them here.
Still live?
No.
Okay.
No, they weren't live to begin with, because when they make them, they only make the shells and the top.
Yeah.
You have to put the fuses in yourself.
Gotcha.
Okay. Okay, this panel right here is part of the Moving Vietnam Memorial. It was here in 88 and 92, and in 92 this panel got damaged when it was on its travel. It didn't get damaged here. But they replaced it with a new panel, so they left this one here for us. Okay, each bedroom, there are 4 bedrooms up here, each bedroom is a different branch of the armed forces. This is Marines. Okay, in the closet over here, we have things from every war, okay? We have German helmets, World War I and World War II. The blue one has a bullet hole in it, right under that piece of paper. When I was a kid, the guy who owned that used it as a motorcycle helmet. Of course I was a kid a long time ago, back in the 50s. Right after World War II, and when he brought it home, he used to drive around with it on top of his head. It's kind of an interesting thing. I mean, that was World War I, but he had it. The guy who had it, I don't know where he got it from, but the guy that had it was kind of interesting. Okay, this case all the things in this case belong to this man. This is Marvin Perry. He was in World War II. That's the bag he carried with all the things in it, and he labeled the outside with all the places he had been stationed. We have a World War I machine gun over there. We have a Japanese knee mortar in that case from World War II, along with our sea rations. We have uniforms from every era. We have women's uniforms, at least one in every room. This case is Korea. Okay. We actually have photographs of Marilyn Monroe when she was in Korea in 1954 doing her USO show. This guy, T.L. Thompson, he was local. He was in Korea, and he just got pictures of her standing around. You do know Marilyn Monroe, I hope.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I always have to ask.
Kind of starting a theme this year, huh? We did an investigation at the former Legion, well now American Legion, former school, and now is also a multi-year armed forces sort of museum.
Okay. Well, the people who started this museum in '84, all of the men were either World War II, Korea, or Vietnam vets. So when they got a hold of the house, they just decided they didn't have enough furniture to fill the house with Lighthouse stuff, so they decided to make it a military museum.
Makes sense.
And of course, each person was in a different branch of the military, and so they'd go to their buddies, hey, what do you got that I can put in a display? And since then, people just bring things to us, you know, that they find in their attics and stuff like that. You know, somebody will die and they'll go through the house, and it's like, hey, you know, I don't know what to do with this. Do you want it? And it's like, well, yeah, you know, so we have...
Just keep getting more collecting.
Yeah.
We
the same
keep
way as
getting
the rooms
more
in
and
the
more
historical
stuff,
society.
yes. I mean, we're really to a point where we can't take anything else because we have so much stuff in here. Now, there are wasps flying around, so just watch yourself, I guess. They'll be all right. This is Navy. We have planking from different battleships. We have flag that's flown over the Arizona. This is dedicated to LSTs. LST 551, the guy who started this museum, the original guy, Dick, who's really, his name is Harold Lawson, and you'll see his picture out on one of the memorials out there. He's the one who started the museum in '84. He was on 551 during Korea, so we have things from him and his family here. And this guy, his son is on our board now, so you'll see his name around because we have, that's John's father, and then we have his cousin Tom, who's those two uniforms belong to Tom. All of the things in that case Tom brought back from the USSR. He was there in the 70s in Moscow. He was part of the embassy.
Ooh.
Okay. So we have lots of things like that. We have our Civil War case in here. Models of the ships. The Sullivans, that's in Buffalo. A lot of people like to go on that paranormal, the Sullivans, because that's haunted. So a lot of people do go on there. Hallway is dedicated to Vietnam, as I said earlier, so we can head out. Missing soldier ceremony. I've come up here before, and the fork, the knife, and the spoon will all be moved like this. Okay. One day it was, you know, the spoon was crossing the knife like that. And we don't let people normally wander around the house by themselves.
Yeah.
So things shouldn't be moved, you know, because it's a guided tour.
Right.
Okay. This is Vietnam. American uniforms, Vietnamese uniform over there. Sandals. The sandals are called Ho Chi Minh sandals, and those are made from used tires. If you pick them up, you can look at the treads. Okay. This is Army and Air Force. Okay. When this was a family home, the littlest kids slept in this room because there was no access to the hallway from this room. So this was like the nursery, and if they got up at night, they could only get over here, and then the older kids had to take care of them. Okay.
Lucky older kids.
This is Desert Storm. These two cases are mostly World War I, then we have World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and the rest of it. All right. German medals in both cases, including an Iron Cross. This man was captured by the Japanese in World War II. He spent 3.5 years in a Japanese slave labor camp on the island of Corregidor. These are all of his medals. He lived to be 92.
Wow.
Passed away just a few years ago. And an interesting thing, we have the local ghost hunting group comes here and does a lot of fundraising for us.
Beyond Ghosts?
No, well they do come once a year. Beyond Ghosts are from Buffalo. No, this is just the Dunkirk, Fredonia
Gotcha.
group. And they come and do like 3 or 4 a year for us.
Yep.
Okay, last year they raised almost $3,000 for us doing ghost tours
That's great.
at night. So
That's what
You know,
we,
we-
that's what we normally do too.
Okay.
Yeah.
We do a lot of fundraisers
Okay.
for historical sites.
yeah, and it really helps us a lot. Now Beyond Ghost, they give us money, but they keep half of it themselves because they are really they do it to raise money for themselves along with. So it's a lot harder to get money from them. So
Yeah.
we let them come once a year. But the local group, in April, just before we opened, they put all of their equipment up and stayed overnight. They slept in this room on the floor here. There were like 3 or 4 of them. And the one girl was laying here and she had put her flashlight under the table right here. This box wasn't under the table at the time. She put her flashlight on the floor so that, because it was pitch black, and you know if she wanted to get up, she had her flashlight handy. Well, when she woke up, the flashlight was over here on the floor. So
Sounds like the kids like to be mischievous.
They do like to be mischievous, the kids do. They do things like that. I mean, and we did find the ball. The ball we found last week up in that room over there.
Jeez.
Okay. Now,
Traveling ball.
let's see, is it this one? We moved some of the stuff around. I think it's this G.I. Joe case right here. One day I was standing like right here, and I was talking to somebody who was here, and there were two people in there, and we were just kind of chatting, and all of a sudden this guy's hat flew off his head. Of course, he's leaning, right now he's leaning against there, but he was like this. He was standing up straight. His hat flew off his head and landed down in the bottom of the thing. Now, nobody was moving in here. We were just standing chatting. And it just flew off. And I saw it, and the other person here saw it, and it's like, yeah. And then so we tried to, when you jump up and down, they don't move.
Yeah.
But nobody was jumping or anything at the time. It was everybody was just standing.
Just a little pink.
It just flew right off his head.
That's great.
It was kind of weird,
Yeah.
It was like, okay, and they fit way down on their heads. It's not like that they can really fall off.
Mm-hmm.
And then actually, when I picked it up and put it back on, it said there was a piece of tape in it.
Jeez.
So it's
That
just,
was, like supposed to be holding it onto his head.
Right. Wow.
Okay, last room is Air Force. And again, we have models of a lot of the airplanes. We have an aerial bomb from World War II. We have uniforms from all the different eras. Suitcases from World War II. The creepy guy in the corner. A little bit.
I'm sure he'll startle us at some point during the night.
Well, it's really fun when we do the ghost tours and stuff. I don't tell people it's the creepy guy in the corner normally, but we'll be like in the dark and they'll come in and they'll shine their flashlights and his eyes are like really weird looking.
They are.
And the way he's looking down with his eyes like looking up, it's really,
That's
really
like a reflection
yes.
of the light.
And people come in and they go, ah! And I always tell everybody that he lost his finger because he got fresh with her and she broke it. So that's why she's hiding in the corner, because she doesn't want to see him anymore. Okay. We have a life jacket right here. The life jacket is called a Mae West, because you have to blow it up when you jump out of the airplane, and you have to put the little tube. Once it's blown up, it makes you extremely busty, so it's called a Mae West. If you know Mae West.
Yeah.
If you know Marilyn Monroe, you might know Mae West. If you watch Bugs Bunny's girlfriend was based on Mae West. Okay, so this is the house itself. This is what it is. This is what you can sit in any room you feel like sitting in. Just like I said, be careful.
Yep.
There is no eating or drinking in the house.
Yep.
Of course, no smoking. If you do smoke, I don't know if you smoke or not, but if you do smoke, you have to do that outside. If you want to eat or drink, you have to do that either outside or in the store.
Okay.
Okay? And I don't usually stay